Welcome to Progressive Soup. I am Roberto Perez, filling in for David Stevenson, who is here in spirit. This show, we will have two members of the Green Party, Cora Santaguida and Ralph Nader, and our mainstay, Joe Niola. We're here today basically to discuss Jill Stein's candidacy for President of the United States. And we will touch on the subjects that are related to this election. Cora, I'd like you to give us a little background and tell us how you've gotten involved and what your hopes for this election are.
Well, I became a Green in 2012. Jill Stein was also running for president then. And I started off going to, local events for the Connecticut Green Party. I decided to run for Board of Education that year in Stamford. And still, participating in Jill's campaign, collected some signatures to get her on the ballot. In 2012, we actually did not. We were not successful in getting Jill on the ballot, as where this year it looks a lot more promising. So since 2012, I ran for office in 2013 for Board of Reps in my district, or District 9. And then after that in 2014, ran for Board of Education again. But this year, really I've been concentrating on Jill's ballot access, collecting signatures, doing a lot of social media activity. I also was, I helped organize an event for her, a ballot access rally in Stamford on July 21st, where she came and spoke to a group of 150 people. And people there collected blank petition pages and clipboards and joined already the 100+ volunteers and paid petitioners that we had.
Great. Yeah. Ralph?
I've been involved with the Green Party Connecticut since I think about 2004, and I helped on a couple of campaigns, and then I started running for different offices beginning in 2009. In 2009 I ran for City of Stamford, Mayor of City of Stamford. I ran twice in a special election for state senate and state representative. Most recently I ran for Board of Education in town in Stamford, and before that it was for state treasurer and comptroller. One of them was a write-in.
Okay. And as many of you may or may not know, Joe Niola and myself and David Stevenson and others on the show were advocates for Bernie Sanders very early on. We still think Bernie was the better person, but as it turns out, he did not get the nomination. So we are...
He didn't get the nomination, and so now some of the disgruntled Bernie Sanders people are concerned about where they're going to put their vote. Some of them are able to hold their nose and vote for Hillary. Others are not morally capable of that kind of a compromise, and so they're looking for an alternative. And based on the the research that I've done, Jill Stein appears to be the candidate of choice. So it would probably be in the best interest of voters that are trying to become as enlightened as they can to explore their options, and one of those options is Jill Stein. And fortunately, we have two members of the Jill Stein team, right? And I'm kind of hoping that you could throw some light on how her policies run in accordance with Bernie Sanders, and how they may differ from some of the conservative or Republican candidates.
Mm-hmm. Given that, what can you tell us? What are the similarities And what are the differences at this point? And why should someone who is on the fence, well, Hillary, yeah, but she's got so much baggage, why should they go with Jill?
You mean as opposed to just Hillary Clinton, or as comparison?
Right, yeah, as
in
opposed to
general?
Hillary at this point. I don't even want to mention the other candidate because he's not worth mentioning. But
Yeah.
that's only my opinion.
Yeah.
He's in the process of self-destruct right now anyway. But yeah, let's keep it between Hillary and Jill at this time, and maybe we can stretch it out at a later point.
Absolutely. So feel free to.
Did you
jump
want
in
to say
if
something?
You want to start?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, like Jill Stein says, as a physician, she says that she wants to offer a sort of reparative prescription for the United States. So she looks at things from a more holistic perspective. So the traditional view with the mainstream parties is to look at an issue, each one isolated from one another. But for instance, police violence, or something, for instance, like the drug problem in the country. Jill Stein doesn't just simply look at it as a question of trying to keep the spread of drugs under control. She looks about what's the underlying cause, why do people get involved with drugs, the social, the economic issues related to that. So her approach is to deal with a problem by literally being radical. Radical means to get to the root of something, as opposed to, with the popular definition of radical means taking an extreme position. It's actually getting to the heart of something. So many of her policies focus on dealing with the root cause of things. And if you solve a problem in one area, you often find it has benefits in what normally be perceived as unrelated areas as well.
Sort of a pyramid effect, or a domino effect, rather.
Yeah,
where you're making things better progressively for not just one segment.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Well, Jill has, I'm sorry, you?
No,
go
go
ahead.
right ahead.
Well, Jill actually, she has a history of being a progressive, and she's not a career politician. So that being said, she's involved in different things from a public level. She had a lot of her supporters call her the people's candidate for several reasons, but she has. She's had a progressive agenda long before this election, certainly, and also before 2012. And also you just see by the way she carries herself, by the way she does things. If you looked at coverage from the Democratic National Convention, it was just her and a couple of her supporters, or maybe some people from her campaign, walking through the streets with her. She didn't have a bunch of, fancy security, and she was able to address her supporters, be interviewed, all while navigating the streets. Also, you may have seen coverage of her, taking public transportation, things like that, which she actually, she does. I think in some ways where she differs from Hillary Clinton, kind of like on a personal level, because she doesn't take corporate donations or anything like that, there's really no frills. Okay. And what you see from her, that's her. Okay. And I was listening to an interview that she did recently, and she had, as far as her getting into the White House, she didn't refer to herself as being commander-in-chief, rather organizer-in-chief. And really, the Americans, or the voters, they're the ones who are going to be mobilized to take action and do things, rather than somebody from above.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you made regarding organizer-in-chief. I kind of like that approach that she has, and I think she feels she can be very effective taking that approach because she doesn't have any corporate money hanging over her head, and so she can be a very powerful advocate for the people because she's not beholden to the money. And I think that from what I heard, this ability as an organizer for the people will allow her to call out politicians, to see to it that various bills are brought to the attention of the American people so they can review them, so they will know exactly what the Congress is going to be voting on. So it's a lot of things that are done secretly, a lot of bills that are killed in the Congress that may have been in the best interest of the people. She will be able to, there'll be more transparency given to the American people. So I kind of like that approach that she's taking. The other side of the coin is, can she really win without that kind of money behind her?
Well, that's going to be the key now, the money. You know, is it money that drives everything, or is it the fact that we need extreme changes in this country now?
Well, you know, it's such an uphill climb. It was an uphill climb for Bernie Sanders, but it's a steeper climb for Jill. I mean, she just has she has a few months to overcome the money handicap, but that's good. I'd rather see that. She doesn't have the exposure in terms of who is she. There are a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters out there that would that would go with her if they even knew who she was.
Well,
and whether or not the media is going to be generous enough to give her some exposure, that would be questionable, because they've already bought into one of the candidates. So it's going to be rough.
Maybe Ralph or Gore can give
Ralph,
us
can you say something?
Before she was a politician, who was she? What did she do? What molded her desire to become one with the Green Party and to run for office?
I've heard her speak a couple of times in the area, and she has this really funny anecdote. Of course, she was a physician, but she got involved with the Green Party because she said someone sort of tricked her to run for governor against Mitt Romney. And so when she stated her case at a debate, she thought she did terribly, but the reporters are gathering around her afterwards because the online polls were indicating that she was just going through the roof. So then she realized that there is, as with Bernie Sanders, he demonstrates that there is an appetite for real solutions, constructive approaches.
Not just lip service.
Right, yeah. So Bernie Sanders, he said that he has this groundswell of support. And I think Chris Hedges asked him, why aren't you taking advantage of this and run as an independent candidate as yourself? And he said, because I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader. So he's trying to walk within the system and try to reform it from within. He's trying to be distinctive, but part of the system at the same time. That just doesn't work. So you have Jill Stein. Anybody that's a third party or an additional party candidate isn't just running against Democrats or Republicans. They're running against a system that supports both of them. They sort of feed on each other. And what she says is that she keeps pointing out that she's not so much running against the other candidates trying to get votes, like the argument about she's going to take votes away from the other major party candidates. And it's like, no, we're going after a different kettle of fish altogether. There was one poll or an article back in February said 40% of all registered voters are not affiliated with either Democrats or Republicans. Most recently, Jill Stein says now it's up to 60%.
Yeah, it's like 57.
So that's right there. You have an opportunity for a major sea change.
That's a pretty big number.
Yeah. I was like, I was shocked. I thought it was like around 52%, but now it's 60%. And the mainstream media, which works hand in glove with the Democrats and Republicans, they love to focus on this idea that we're helpless as voters, but what they're desperately trying to hide the fact is that they're at our mercy, because there's still a whole bunch of people that regularly don't even participate in elections, and that can make all the difference. So this is what keeps her going, and this is why we keep supporting her.
Okay, so for our viewers and voters who are still wondering what she did prior to this, like, was she an educator? Was she a businesswoman? Where did she evolve from to move into the political arena?
She co-wrote some books.
A couple of books.
did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was an internist. I think she still is. Dr. Jill Stein.
Yeah,
You know,
she's a
an
medical
internist.
doctor.
Right.
And also, on a number of occasions, she spoke about the fact that a political revolution can't really evolve in a counter-revolutionary party. And so she sees the Democratic Party as counter to the political revolution. Now, Bernie Sanders feels that he can do something from within. He may, now with the popularity that he has, influence congressional elections. Also, a couple, I call them slicksters, but I say it in a positive sense. A guy by the name of Esty, and I'm not even sure now of their names. The article was might have been in Nation magazine, I'm not sure. But I know that the movement is called Brand New Congress.
Yeah.
And this movement is an attempt to take Bernie's revolution and find political candidates, even among Republicans, that are willing to make his agenda part of their platform. So these guys are working. People like Jill Stein is out there trying to influence voters. I think it's really important for the people to somehow or other rescue their government from two parties that are corporately controlled.
And divisive.
Right.
Because at this point, basically, the Republican Party is very divisive. I mean, from one day to the next, they're not sure what it is that their candidate is supposed to say or what he's doing. They don't know from one moment to the next.
Yeah, the unity of that party now is somewhat fractured. There are options available to them, but the train is speeding along, and whether or not they can do anything about that, that's up to them. There are options.
Right,
There are things that they can do. There's money there that they can use. They could take the Libertarian candidate, Gary Johnson. They can throw their support behind him. Mitt Romney has done that. Members of the Bush family can do that. Gary Johnson's at 7%. Koch brothers, they had money behind Mike Pence. They decided that they're not going to support him since he's moved in with Trump. So if Gary Johnson gets some of that Koch money, that'll move him up to about 15%. Ross Perot is at 16%. He got airtime. He managed to make it into the debates. So whether they want to do that is questionable. If they do something like that, and Gary Johnson's pulling in votes, Clinton's pulling in votes, and Trump will be pulling in votes. Jill Stein will be pulling in votes as well, because they're going to be, if Gary Johnson can make some headway, they're going to want to see Jill Stein. The problem with Jill is, I don't know if she's going to get that 15% that she needs with the 5 polls. Isn't that the way it works?
I believe so.
Yeah. So unless she can get that, she can't get on the debate stage. And when she does get on the debate stage, the cards are still stacked against her, because what kind of questions are they going to ask her? What kind of questions are they going to ask Gary?
What are your positions on immigration? What are your positions on foreign trade?
They'll put spins on it. They usually do. Well, the one thing about her, well, actually, there's 2 things about her that and I don't know why she did what she did. It's her vice president, Ajama Barak. Guys, he's an intelligent fellow. They don't know much about him, but he's been criticized as an extremist. Some people even see him as a black supremacist as opposed to white supremacists. But he's very intelligent.
As
he's-
opposed to a human rights activist.
No, as a white supremacist, you know, the skinheads, or the ones that feel that the rights of the whites are being marginalized. There's too much concern over blacks, too much concern over immigrants, and that the whites are being screwed. That they're paying for social programs that are being abused and that they don't benefit from. That's what I mean
And
by...
statistics do not
Well-
reinforce that fact. That's not factual to the extent that...
Well, they're trying to see that mentality as a strong portion of the Trump following. That's what they're seeing. Getting back to Jill Stein, there was one aspect to her agenda that gave me some additional thought, and that's that whole idea of boycotting Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she was able to turn the heat down on that one, I thought, when she said that it's not just Israel, it's Saudi Arabia, it's Egypt.
The Middle East in its entirety.
Whatever countries, okay, are practicing what she considered to be political and social abuses to members of their societies, they should also be boycotted.
Regardless of the ethnic background of the individuals in the countries.
Right. I don't know how that's going to play. I can see the Republicans jumping on that and right away labeling her as anti-Israel.
Without really taking the time to see the in-depth approach that she's taking about it.
Right.
You know, so...
But her social programs, they're really good. One of them that they think is totally off the wall, it has to do with student debt.
Mm-hmm. Would you?
Yeah, I think would one of you
want to
comment
elaborate
on
on?
that? Yeah.
Well, on Jill's platform, part of Jill's platform is to eliminate student debt completely. She's talked about doing this via quantitative easing, which means, the way that the Wall Street bankers were bailed out, that's how we would bail out students. I believe the number for the Wall Street bailouts was something like 17 trillion, and the last figure I heard, it would only take $1 trillion to bail out the students.
17-to-1 ratio.
Yes, yes.
That's huge.
And the thing is that once you bail out the students, they'll be able to, get jobs and won't be held down. And with the Green New Deal, creating 20 million new jobs to address getting clean, renewable energy, sustainable energy, that will create
Solar,
20 million.
wind.
Solar, wind, right.
Okay.
And that will create, like I said, 20 million real jobs.
Okay.
And that will actually cut a lot of the money that we're spending. It will also cut down on war significantly because we're not going to be relying on fuel. That's very important. Do you want to add to this?
Yeah, well, that kind of dovetails too with the issue about her foreign policy. She wants to cut the military down by 50%.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that is inconceivable, but that's because that's become the fabric of our identity as a country. And but she's really historically in good company, because Smedley Butler, I think he was the only general that won 2 Congressional Medals of Honor. He wanted the military to be centered around the National Guard. He's famous for that essay, War is a Racket. And of course, if we change our foreign policy to one of strictly defense as opposed to aggression, then we don't need as much military expenditures, because we have some.
And given the
700
technology
bases
that
abroad.
exists now, drones and the fact that we have the world's largest navy, and that we can use submarines if necessary. If someone is aggressive to us, we have ways of dealing with that. You don't necessarily have to have your boots on the ground to deal with it.
But she would like to no interference, no military actions, okay, only defensive actions. And also, if there is going to be a military action, which has to be solely defensive, there has to be congressional approval. The president can't just fight these wars here and there, and that's one way to save money. And as far as ISIS goes, she feels they should be starved. In other words, they shouldn't be. They cut off any kind of funding that they might get. Cut off volunteers that are going into that area. Just sort
weapons embargo.
Yeah.
Weapons embargo.
Yeah.
Freeze bank accounts.
Go.
You can't bomb out terrorism.
Right.
You can't meet violence with more violence.
Right.
And the thing is that the U.S. is providing a staggering number of weapons to them. I think, what was the last figure? It was $100 million in weapons we just sold
To
to them.
specifically to Saudi Arabia, which in turn is funding
ISIS.
ISIS,
They're one of the
exactly.
major supporters, yeah.
Right.
Well, that whole thing with Saudi Arabia has gotten totally out of hand, and we get caught up in it because of the fact that we are allied to them in a weird way.
we're beholding for, at this point, no one knows the real reason.
We went the Saudi Arabia went into Yemen.
Okay.
And we got how much time we got?
Well, we're going to wind this down right now. We will continue to discuss Jill Stein and her run for the presidency and what we can do to help the Green Party and to make it an environment that is competitive because they know who Jill Stein is and what it is that she's about, and hopefully we can make things a little tighter for those at the top. This has been Progressive Soup. I'm Roberto Perez.